Right, good afternoon everyone. I'm Councillor Dorrington, Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education. So before we start, just do a bit of housekeeping. If there's a continuous fire alarm, can we please evacuate the room and public gallery by way of the stairs? Please do not attempt to use the lifts. Because of the ice rink, please assemble in the turning circle at the end of the King Henry Street, past the University Park building. To comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who's signed in at the Guildhall reception, please can you sign out when leaving the building. Please can I draw everyone's attention that this is being webcast today. I've lost my page. Please be advised that in the public seating area is not in view of the cameras used on the webcast this meeting. Everyone speaking will be on camera apart from those sitting to my right. Members of the press and public, obviously many of you here today, you are permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disturbs the meeting nor records those stating explicitly they do not wish to be recorded. Is there anybody who explicitly does not wish to be recorded? Right, so introductions then. So we'll start to my left. We'll start there.
Anna Martin, Democratic Service.
Richard Webb, Deputy Director of Finance.
Robert Healy, Councillor with the Children's, Families and Education team.
Nathan Kane, Deputy Director, Education.
Alison Critchley, Head of Sufficiency and Resources.
Debbie Anderson, Head of School Improvement and Early Years.
Good afternoon, everybody. There are no deputations today. Meetings of the previous minutes I've done. Apologies for absence. We've got Sarah Daly. And I believe that's it. Have we got any other apologies at all? Who's running slightly late? Yeah, hopefully he's not too late and he can catch some of the meeting. So declarations of members' interests. Are there any declarations of members' interests at all? Nope. Okay then. So moving on to item 3, the reappointment of trustees at UTC Portsmouth. I believe, Nathan, you're kicking us off.
Yes, I'm taking this one. So the purpose of this report is to seek agreement for the reappointment of Portsmouth City Council's Head of Sufficiency and Resources, Alison, to UTC Portsmouth as trustee of the company, which is set out in the report. UTC, as you'll be aware, is a specialist college for children and young people aged 14 to 19. It opened in 2017 and it has a STEM-focused curriculum, so subjects in science, technology, engineering and maths. It has really strong links with local employers and a high-performing college within the city. It's a company limited with a guarantee, and the articles state that Portsmouth City Council appoints one of the members to the company, which is what we're putting forward Alison to do for a second term. So she has already served 4 years, and the recommendation and request from UTC is that she serves again. So that is the request that is coming for approval today.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions at all? No? Well, clearly she's a glutton for punishment, and 4 years wasn't quite enough, so I see no reason why she shouldn't continue for another 4. See how she pans out. So I am going to, did you say you wrote it on here somewhere for me? Or should I just go back to the analogue version?
This bit, so I agree.
Right, okay, so I'll read that bit. Wonderful. So I agree that Alison Critchley, Portsmouth City Council's Head of Sufficiency and Resources, be reappointed by the Council to the UTC Portsmouth as trustee of the company. Moving on to item 4 then, which is the funding arrangements for 2026-2027. And Richard, I believe this one's yours.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'm attending today on behalf of Angela Mann, and I also have with me Rob Healy from the finance team. So we'll do our best to answer your questions today, but if there's anything we can't answer today, we'll happily take away and report back to you. So this report today provides an update on the latest developments in the school revenue funding arrangements for the financial year 26-27. This report is a part of a sequence of reports in the budget setting process, and as usual, a further report will be presented in the new year. The report provides an update on the proposed changes from the Department for Education, and additionally it sets out areas where decisions are required to enable the finance team to further develop the budgets once further details, including the funding allocations, are announced. In addition to asking you to note the proposed arrangements for 26-27, there are some key recommendations that do require a decision. Paragraph 2.1.2 seeks the approval of the proposals to implement the national funding formula rates. It also seeks approval for the proposals for the minimum funding guarantee subject to affordability, and also approval of the proposed methodology for managing overall affordability once the funding allocations are announced. Paragraph 2.1.3 seeks endorsement of the growth fund and values and criteria. And lastly, paragraph 2.2 recommends that you note the de-delegation arrangements for the education functions. So this report was also presented to Schools Forum on the 3rd of December, and I can confirm that Schools Forum endorsed and agreed the recommendations accordingly, and they also agreed to the proposed de-delegation arrangements that I've just mentioned. Happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, well, I'll thank you for the report, and I approve the proposals for implementing the local funding formula arrangements as set out in this report to implement the national funding formula rates for both primary and secondary schools in 2026-27 when published by the DFE. Implement a minimum funding agreement, MFG, at the top of the range published by the DFE, subject to affordability for 2026-27, as set out in paragraph 5.15. The method of managing affordability as set out in paragraphs 5.16 to 5.19. I endorse the growth fund values set out in paragraph 5.10 and the criteria set out in Appendix 4. I note the de-delegation of funding to support the education functions as set out in Section 7. Hi, Russell.
Apologies, Chair. Christmas traffic.
Right, we are now on to item 5, which is the dedicated schools grant for 2025-2026, quarterly 2 budget monitoring and revised budget. And I believe this one again is yours, Rich.
Before, Chair, I've also got nothing to declare.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an update on the forecast position of the dedicated schools grant for the current year as at the end of September 2025. Table 1 provides a summary of the budgets and the forecast variances, which are highlighting a forecast overspend of 1.4 million for this financial year. This is mainly arising from the high needs block. Section 6 does provide further details regarding the cause of this financial pressure on the high needs block, and it's recommended that you note the forecast budget position and the need for mitigation plans to address the overspend, with further updates to follow in quarter 3. Happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
If you give me a few minutes, I probably would have a question, but for now, it's fine.
Yeah, you sure? I don't mind giving you a sec if you want.
I didn't actually get this pack, which is a little bit frustrating. So and I have briefly looked through it digitally, but I just want to have a quick look if that's right.
We're on number 5.
I suppose the question is, if we've got an overspend, how are we covering that overspend? Are we taking from other learning blocks or different areas to fund that? How is that working?
Okay, for the current financial year, there's Table 6 sets out the current reserve position on the Dedicated Schools Grant and shows how that overspend will be funded from that reserve. But obviously, as is recommended in the recommendations, mitigation plans do need to be developed to make sure that the DSG is sustainable on an ongoing basis.
So the question is, how long would that reserve last if we keep having more, if it keeps going up and up and up, and how would that fit with local government organisation in 1 or 2 years' time? No, that's a really big loaded question.
I'll try and pick that one up. So Nathan Kane, Deputy Director of Education. Nice to meet you. I mean, I think Portsmouth's in an interesting position in the high needs block in the sense that it's one of a handful of local authorities that isn't significantly overspent already. And this is what you'll see as regularly presented in the press in terms of the pressures of SEND funding. If nothing changes, and we're still awaiting the exact figure for our high needs block for next year, then an expenditure remains exactly the same, then we would be overspent within the next financial year. Now, at the moment, there is a statutory override on the high needs block, which means that any deficits do not sit on council budgets. That statutory override originally was due to expire in March of this year, and that's been extended until 2028. We are expecting the school's white paper coming out very shortly, and as part of that, we're also expecting details on the new SEND funding arrangements that will take place as part of that. So at the moment, it's quite difficult to predict too far in the future. We are expecting significant changes, and we're expecting resources to come alongside that. We received a letter from the DFE yesterday because they recently stated, in fact on budget day, that deficits from 2028 onwards would not sit on council budgets. They've also said that they are looking at how they are going to address any accrued deficits up till 2028. So there's a lot that's happening at the moment. We expect for future details in the new year. I think particularly this is within the remit of SEND, and that we are developing as a department a plan to address this in year, working with schools so that we can mitigate the implications of any potential overspend.
Yeah, it mentions, I can see from the education, health and care plans there's an underspend of nearly $1 million, to be honest, but at the same time then there's a overspend of nearly $1 million with the post-16 special education, so SEN. I mean, obviously SEN will always need the funding anyway, but I mean, how does that balance out, or are mainstream schools missing out on education, health and care plans, or is it just a case they just didn't spend the money?
I think in terms of the overall proportions of it, it's quite tricky from one year to the next to predict exactly where some of that will land. And it also depends, particularly in terms of colleges, because of the way the needs are assessed. We don't find out what the needs are going to be for individual children until October, which is when children have started college. Clearly that's a long while after the budget has been set. In terms of SEN funding, Portsmouth has above average number of children with education, health and care plans, and we have I would say, above national average numbers of children in mainstream schools with those education health care plans. So there is a good element of resource going into those schools. Part of the work we want to do over the next few months is really looking at how we are ensuring that mainstream schools are funded appropriately for children. What's really refreshing in the new guidance is that there is a strong emphasis placed on early intervention, which we would support. We're hoping that that will mean additional resources going to mainstream schools to support more children with increasingly complex needs, which will ensure that more children are able to remain in their local communities. I think the biggest challenge that we do have in this system is the number of children who require special school provision. That's because the availability in the city is exhausted, and where we are then having to look to place some children out of the city at very, very high cost in the independent sector, and that is something we want to avoid moving forward. So there's a lot going on in this space.
Yeah, I suppose my own concern would be if we had, like, I'd say 863,000 underspend because essentially it was a lower cohort of pupils, but then one year we might actually have a higher amount of cohort of students, and then would that money still be there for them? Because it looks to me, and I don't think it don't have to be a specialist in this area to know that SEND's only going to cost more and more each year. I think the more, especially considering we're going to have more and more, I suppose, diagnosis and allowing, you know, because I'm sure there's many people, many young students and young children that are being missed by the system. So, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's gone up nearly $1 million this time around. So I'm educated guess would be that it will go up, but my question would be, where would that money come from? Would it be, you know, if the mainstream does suddenly go up to that $1 million, which we had the year previously, are we still going to be able to cover it?
And I think that's the challenge we've got to look at the moment, really. And I think once we know what the allocation is from the DSG for the high needs block, we'll be able to answer those questions in more detail. But just rest assured, it is a piece of work that we are focusing.
And sorry.
Any more? Yeah.
So just to add to that, so the team will obviously be working with the education team to refine the forecast, because as you say, in that paragraph that refers to that underspend, it was due to a lower cohort than originally forecast. So all of the budgets will be reviewed and reset as part of the budget setting process, working with the education colleagues, and also in light of the funding changes and the funding announcements that are coming.
Wonderful, thank you.
I have no questions, Chair.
No
Thank you.
questions? Has anyone else got anything they would like to add before I sum up? Wonderful, thanks. In that case then, I will note the forecast of the year-end budget overspend position for the dedicated schools grant of 30th of September 2025, together with the associated explanations contained within this report. I note that in accordance with the responsible financial management mitigation plans will be covered over the Q2 period to alleviate the forecast in the year overspend and will be reported at Q3 period. Right, so thank you everyone for coming. Thank you very much for the meeting. Russell, did you not get sent the papers, or is there a problem with you picking them up?
I don't think on this occasion I got the papers, because when I looked, because I normally come at least once a week to pick up everything, and this definitely wasn't here.
So you didn't have the hard copies? Were they
No.
emailed to you at all?
No, I mean, as I say, I end up looking on the digital one. Sometimes it's like the hard ones, I like to write notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fine. Normally I get them. I think obviously it was because of a few changes that's happened in the last few months there, and that being put into obviously opposition. I think that's probably the reason why.
Okay. Can we?
Yeah, on this occasion it's more.
Can we?
No. I haven't the pigeonhole. We're not going to waste even more taxpayers' money.
Can we just ensure that they go across so that he's got sufficient time to look at everything?
Yeah, I looked online, but no, I'm not making that. I like to make that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, everyone.